daughter is one of the victims.
He said he was checking her for a bladder infection, and he actually inserted fingers inside of her. And it was very quick, and I didn't question him because I trusted him.
Hundreds of other parents trusted Bradley. That's why they would let him take their children to a separate room in his office, where prosecutors say the abuse continued. This father says his daughter was only 3 years old when she was molested.
The police officer described that he disrobed both of them and was rubbing his over.
Bradley was charged Monday. Prosecutors say the assaults happened between 1998 and 2009.
Today's indictment is based on video evidence seized by law enforcement during the execution of a search warrant at the defendant's home and office.
Bradley was popular because his office, Baby's Pediatric, was like an amusement park with rides and toys and ice cream. But now these parents say if they only knew what was really going on at the time.
I was out in the room for 3 minutes or less, and you don't think anything of that at the time, but now looking back, the detectives have told us that some of the videotapes took less than 45 seconds.
Police are still going through hundreds of tapes. Bradley remains behind bars in Sussex County.
Joining us today via satellite to help me with this is Nancy Grace, host of Nancy Grace, the highest rated show on HLN. Hello, Nancy.
Hi, Dr. Phil. Thank you for having me with you.
Well, as the mother of twins, you have got to just be over the top about this, as I am.
Dr. Phil, that's not really how I would describe my reaction. I feel sick. I feel angry and I feel sick. And one thing I don't understand, Dr. Phil, is how these young patients were allowed to be taken away out of the eyesight and the earshot of their own parents. And every doctor I've ever been to has an assistant in the room. Isn't that violating medical protocol right there? And Dr. Phil, one thing I didn't hear mentioned by your news reporter is that one of these alleged victims is as young as 3 months old, Dr. Phil. 3 months old.
In fact, well, I'll tell you what, Nancy, let me just run through for everybody what happened, because you are right, and I just can't find it. It gets worse and worse. Here's what actually happened. Nearly 500 criminal counts, including child rape, and the numbers keep rising. 103 victims, 102 girls and 1 boy. Now, the victims range from 3 months of age to 13 years old. Now, the first indictment dates back to December 10th, 1998, and the most recent count to December 1309. And what he did, he gained the parents' trust here and lured these kids away. Now, you can't gain my trust that much. And there were 13 hours of videotape files that were recovered from the home and the office, and it showed dozens of violent attacks, sexual attacks with these children. Some of them, he muzzled the children in order to do this. Nancy.
Lying. He was investigated back in 2005 and 2008. A colleague referred to him as a pedophile. But even with those investigations, they were for excessive kissing and improper vaginal examinations on little children, little girls. Even with all of that, nobody brought charges. It didn't even go to the medical board, Dr. Phil.
Well, Nancy, help me with your background. I'm really curious about what you think about this. I want to look at what failed. And I told the audience at the top of the show that this is affecting everybody, and even if you're not one of this guy's patients, of course. But the system has failed. When we go to a doctor who has a license from the state to practice medicine, you assume that that's an endorsement, that somebody has checked this person out, that there's a gate.
Every night, sometimes 20 hours a day, sometimes when I was on trial, Dr. Phil. But in this case, police had information from a nurse that he was videotaping vaginal exams
of kids that this man was allowed access to. Next, we'll talk to a Delaware police officer who said this pediatrician fell through the cracks. And we'll tell parents what they can do.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil. 7 days ago, they came to save their daughter.
I came here. I wanted you to save us.
Did they make real changes?
I didn't understand, but now I do.
Do you have any idea what this woman has gone through? Do you have even a clue?
Is Amanda ready for recovery?
You wanted to go out and party in L.A. the first night you got here.
I'm 20 years old and I have a babysitter.
You had a babysitter because you act like a child. Did you bring drugs with you here?
That is tomorrow.
he started.
But all of us out here that rely on the state medical boards, on the police, the investigative powers to keep us away from this kind of...
That allowed us to move forward with a search warrant. Once we did that, subsequent arrest charges were made.
What everybody wants to know is why in the world it took so long. In 1994, this guy hit the radar with charges of sexual misconduct. Again in 95, 2005, 2006, 2008, then 2009. Why does it take 5 years for somebody to at least issue a warrant and give the police the ability to go in there and find these videotapes?
Unless they're going under anesthesia in an operating room, you need to be in that room with that child.
You can contact your state medical board. You can also go to docinfo.org. Now this costs $9.95, but the information is there. This varies from state to state. Now some of these report if complaints have been filed, but some of them don't report. You could have 20 complaints filed, but if nothing has been adjudicated, there's been no finding, then it wouldn't show up at all. So what's a parent to do then, Nancy?
At that point, I really believe that all you can do is trust your gut, get referrals. Dr. Phil, I don't want to leave out the staff, okay? That's, their behavior, in my mind, is unacceptable.
Chandra Parker closed the door and ordered her to continue fighting. According to an affidavit, Chandra Parker told deputies she believed the fight was the best way to resolve its ongoing problem.
The fight that popped up on YouTube more than a week ago took place in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Days later in Lowell, Massachusetts, local authorities discovered similar videos online.
And now with cell phones in the hands of almost every teen, the altercations are going online, making the original issue even worse.
Massachusetts DA says local educators report about 80% of school fights are now girl against girl, a trend he believes is fueled in part by the internet.
They see friends getting a lot of attention by the posting of these violent attacks. Being young and impressionable kids, they figure that's one way to get attention to themselves.
Well, girl fights caught on tape are happening more and more, and I'm sorry, I don't get it. I know I'm from another generation. Girls didn't fight. They were snipped. But what has happened with common sense? This is what let's take a look at exactly what went wrong and who failed in this case. First, the victim did ask police for help, reportedly 2 times. She asked 3 security guards for help. Result, no help. The victim was beaten and allegedly robbed. Now, we've tried to find out why they didn't do this. They say it's policy. They can't intervene. They didn't even attend to this girl after the beating was over. They kicked her in the head, they beat her, kicked her in the head, then walked off, came back, kicked her in the head again, and nobody even bent down to see if the girl was dead or alive. What in the world is, and you cite policy? Well, that policy is crap if the policy says that. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. You can't...
Yeah.
What do you say, Mom?
What do you say when you see your child? Sometimes I feel like there's some feelings that you just can't describe. You can only feel them.
Nancy, I know I'm significantly older than you. I freely admit that. But what's happened with this generation? Did this ever happen with when you were younger?
No, it didn't. In fact, I don't recall ever seeing girls physically fight in that way. However, I will say, when I was prosecuting felonies through the 80s and the 90s in inner city Atlanta, I started seeing young girls at young teen ages, like 12, 13, 14, starting to join